I'm Chris Williams from Cyclone Fanatic and a proud Iowa State graduate from the class of 2007. No one shows up like Iowa State fans. And Cyclones support Cyclones on and off the field. Your gift can provide scholarships to students, fund groundbreaking research. We could even drum up opportunities for the marching band. Visit MoveWhatMatters.com to learn how you can make an impact today.
This is a matchup for the ages. Audi cuts a path straight to the paint, and she serves up a slam dunk. Hope Audi may have the win, but Frank really got the W on that play. That's gotta hurt.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Reaction Time. I'm Jacqueline Cordova, joined by my co-host Ben Visser, and we are here presented by our friends at Fareway. The season is officially over. How's it feel?
Weird. Also, mostly because I was getting married during the NCAA Championships, so I only got to watch a little bit of it. So I don't feel like I had a finality or conclusion to the season because I was busy during that time. So no, it's weird that the season's over. Iowa State obviously had a interesting season.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll get into all that, but yeah, I'm doing good.
No closure from the wrestling season. You know, it's funny because as I was navigating just all the media stuff on site, Andy kept giving you shit about it. He was like, can't believe Ben's getting married on the Saturday of finals. So plenty of people gave you crap for it.
That's all right.
But that's all right. It's still a beautiful day.
It was. It was gorgeous outside. Got married outside. It was a beautiful day. You flew in from Philadelphia, had 1 hour of sleep, so appreciate that.
You know, it's funny because on Friday, I was sitting there and I was thinking about it, and the Friday schedule was later. So the blood round started an hour later than the night prior. So I'm sitting there, I'm starting to do the math, and I'm like, oh, my flight boards at 5:50. I've never flown out of the Philly airport, and we're probably not done till midnight. So I was like, I'm not going to sleep.
Nope.
So it's okay. I took an hour nap. C-Dub and I were texting while he was doing basketball stuff, and he just said it's March. You don't sleep in March. So totally
Did you
worth
sleep
it.
on the plane at least?
I did.
That's good.
I do sleep on planes. I'm a special talent apparently.
Yep.
But no, Philly was good. I will give the 76ers some hate. I didn't love the arena. But it was still really fun. They sold out. So a lot of wrestling fans got to be in attendance for a lot of really good wrestling. But like you said, Iowa State did not have the march they had planned. And I think I started to see that when I left Tulsa. I was like, you know what? Philly's going to be rough. Philly's going to be really rough. And honestly, it kind of was. So ultimately, Iowa State walked out of the weekend with Jacob Frost on the podium, which is awesome. He finished in 7th place, All-American. What a freaking great season for him. He talked a lot about not knowing that he was even going to be in the lineup. So to be able to finish an All-American, I think is a really great accomplishment. But again, in typical fashion, the rest of the team did not have the ending they thought. They finished as a team in 27th place with 18 team points.
Yep. And half of those came from one guy, Jacob Frost. He was an All-American.
Yeah. And I was going to say, should we get into who scored the second most points on the team?
Let's do it. Let's peel that Band-Aid off.
Let's talk about it. Aiden freaking Riggins.
Shout out to Aiden Riggins. If you would have told me a month ago who scored the second most team points, Panero Johnson, Cody Chittum, Evan Frost, Jacob Frost, maybe, one of those guys. Aiden Riggins, who started off the year almost as bad as you could for a Division I wrestler at a high major program. But we saw it once he dropped down to 165. It's like, he's looking a little bit better. Had a great Big 12s. It's like, whoa, he's a guy. Finished fourth at Big 12s. And then goes in and gets 2.5 team points, which is admittedly not a lot, but is the second most team points for Iowa State. And shout out to Aiden Riggins. Shout out to him for just grinding through rough patch of his season and figuring out a way to get it done.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, it's been now, 2 weeks since? So we don't have to get into the nitty gritty of it. I think we've all lived through it. We've read about it. We've talked about it on Twitter.
Yeah.
How do you feel walking out of the season? I know it was kind of weird because, again, you were getting married. You went on your honeymoon, so you were off the grid there for a week, which was funny because I almost tweeted about this. I kept a note in my phone where I just kept making a list of things I would bring up to Ben when he was back about just all the things happening in wrestling, because the portal opened during the week. So it's just been the most chaotic, end of transition from the end of the season into what is now, transfer time. Yep. So how do you feel about Iowa State as of today?
As of today, fine is I think a fine adjective. The season as a whole was okay. Obviously a bunch of injuries happened and you can't control those. So it's like, that is what it is. The NCAA Championships were disappointing, just to put it bluntly. Only having one All-American with at least 3 or 4 All-American caliber guys, 3 caliber, 3 guys who have the caliber of All-American. So that was disappointing. And then, you get to the transfer portal season and Kyson Terrakina leaving. Okay, fine. He wasn't going to have a spot next year either, I don't think. I think Adrian Meza or someone else, Christian Castillo maybe, fills in at 125. Fine. Zach Redding leaving. Yeah, that makes sense. Hasn't seen the mat in 2 years. And then you get to Casey Swiderski. And you had given me a heads up that might be happening. I was like, no, that's unacceptable. Can't have that. And
what do you mean?
That one hurts. And then Cody Chittum, that one I'm more okay with. If you would have told me that a month and a half ago, I'd be a little bit more distraught. Yeah. But I don't think Cody Chittum is ever going to be to the level that many hoped he would get to. Casey, I still think, is an All-American caliber level wrestler every year that he steps on the mat. So that one hurts, and that one is disappointing. Cody is a slightly disappointing, but also I think, and I think Dresser did not say this, but I think Dresser hinted at Cody believing that he knows better than coaches on multiple occasions, because Dresser had said that once Cody started eating the way that the coaching staff told him to, things got better. And Cody said, like, oh, I feel better now. It's one of those things like, why weren't you listening to coaches before? Did you think you know better? And like, we have heard about Cody's sort of manicness about his process and all of that stuff. So it's just one of those things like, is he not coachable? Does he just kind of do what he thinks he should be doing and go from there? So again, that's total and pure speculation on my part, but that one is a little bit less of a disappointment to me, but Casey hurts. That one.
Yeah, I think that was the one that I was a little in denial when I started hearing the rumblings of it. And then when it was confirmed that it was going to happen, I was like, ugh, this sucks. Like, it makes sense. I think that's the thing.
Yeah, I don't fault Casey for it at all.
No,
either.
I think the initial panic from everyone, I think is fair. Because these are guys that you have seen make a direct impact to the success of the program. It was one of those moments where, as a reporter, I was like, God, we've been talking about what a leader you're going to be. It's like one of those moments where it sucks, where you're like, dang, I take back everything I said, I guess. But it also the news broke Friday. I went back and looked. It was like Friday afternoon. So we just had a really crappy Friday morning. Like, Iowa State just had a bad morning. Pinheiro had that really tough loss. So then to watch Pinheiro lose his way to the podium when everyone was expecting him to at least get close. I think it was a really tough pill to swallow that then you hear Casey Swiderski's leaving. So then I think it just causes a ripple effect, right? Because then everyone's like, well, what's going on in the program? What's the problem with the coaching? I saw someone in the forums like, why is everyone's knees getting hurt in practice? So it causes panic. And I get it and I understand. But these transfers, someone had to transfer. Someone was going to have to. It just was a matter of who. And unfortunately, in today's era, the better you are, the better offers you're probably getting. So, yeah, Kyson Terrakina transferring, that was kind of predictable. Predictable in that if I had been aware he had a year left,
exactly, yes.
I would have been like, oh yeah, guys, Kyson's probably going to leave.
Yeah.
But I had no idea he even had a year.
Both him and Zach Redding.
Yeah.
How do you have a year left?
I know. And so it was going to happen. It was just a matter of who. And so Casey is going to go be an Oklahoma Cowboy. So
Oklahoma State.
Sorry, Oklahoma State. Don't yell at me. We'll continue to see him
Yeah.
3 times a year, unfortunately for us, because what was it you said? It's like you love him when he's on your team and you hate him when he's your opponent.
Yep.
So
I said that during his freshman year multiple times because he wrestles like a jerk. Like he is, and like wrestlers are crazy to begin with, but like you can tell he's got a little bit extra piss and vinegar behind him.
he does. And it's so funny to think about like the parallels of last year's Big 12s when I have Chris Perry like almost falling over me because Casey's in a dog fight against whoever that Oklahoma State kid was. I can't remember his name now. And like Casey's bleeding and he's yelling at coaches and Chris Perry's about to fall on the mat because he's so triggered and now they're swapping places.
Yep.
Now Chris Perry's hanging out coaching at Iowa State and Swiderski's headed to Tulsa. But it is what it is. Sounds like he got a pretty good offer from Oklahoma State, which, I mean, they have the money. So, and then Chittum, also, again, not a reason to panic about the future of this program or the coaches. Like you said, there's just been things that once we got to the end of Philly, I was like, I bet Chittum's going to transfer.
Yep. I had that feeling too.
Like just the way he lost. And just
lost there and at the Big 12s. And like he just found ways to lose, especially that Ryder Downey match in Big 12s. I won't forget that one. It's like, how do you lose that match? So I think it's just,
So it was just, it was expected. And it sucks that it's guys that people have grown to really be attached to, but it's the name of the game. So I would not panic. It does not seem that any other surprising transfers should pop up.
Yeah. Pinero, Echemendia, and I think even Bastida all tweeted or posted on Instagram or whatever that they're locked in. So
and MJ Gaitan, I think,
MJ was one too.
I don't know if he tweeted about it or if he posted on Instagram, but those guys kind of went on a little spree the other day, just posting their support for each other. And I was trying to see if it was anywhere specific. Oh, yes. MJ posted on his Instagram, loyal, forever true.
Yeah.
And it was like a bunch of pictures of him and all the guys. So rest assured, the Cali boy isn't leaving, which I'm excited because Casey and Chittum were my favorites. But regardless, the portal's open until May 2nd. Yes. Thank you, Aiden, for pulling some of these up. I'll say Anthony Echemendia was the ringleader of this. I think he shot off his tweet first, I think. But for those of you just listening, Anthony Echemendia tweeted, "Wrestling is a true test of the human spirit. It teaches you life lessons on and off the mat. I'm proud to say I practice the oldest sport in history. Hashtag respect the sport. Hashtag the hard road." And then it's I don't know what you would call this, like a graphic about how it's like one person's taking the path towards wrestling and the rest are headed towards baseball, soccer, and basketball. Curious why football isn't on there.
Yeah.
And then he like tweeted something too about the grass isn't always greener, I think.
Yeah.
Was something he had said. But which when we get more into the transfer portal of it all, it is interesting how these guys respond to it. Yes, Aiden pulled up the tweet. He tweeted, "ISU is a real wrestling jungle. Only the strong survive. You enter the transfer portal for 3 reasons. You can't make the team. You want more money. You don't trust the coaching staff. Get ready for what's coming." In the Cyclone Fanatic forums, somebody shared what Dresser said in a newsletter / just letter to fans that he sent out, where he said something not quite as aggressive as Anthony's. His is a little more politically correct. I don't know what the verbiage is.
Which is uncommon for Dresser, so good for him.
True. He was just kind of like, they want more money. They don't feel the staff is working for them or they don't see a future on the team. So it's funny now to see the parallel between how Anthony used it. But Iowa State, like I said, circling back, the portal officially closes May 2nd. So keep that in mind, that it's about to be a sprint, if that's even possible, given how much has happened across the sport the past 2 weeks. So you should start to hear rumblings of who's taking visits to Iowa State. So, and when I know things, I'll share them. But as of now, just know there should be quite a few visits here in the next few weeks.
Yep.
So, Dresser said, team's going to look a little different. So curious to see what conversation we're having after May 2nd.
Me too.
So looking at NIL and the transfer portal, and not so much with Iowa State, something I was thinking about the other day, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on just how much this has evolved. Because a key thing we have to think about is these programs are now going to be required to have a 30-person roster limit.
Yep.
And Dresser said he had how many guys last time? Like
40 some
I would
odd.
say, yeah, because he really values those practice partners and who's challenging each other in the room. Well, that's changing. You have 30. That's it.
Yep.
So it's just been so crazy watching all of these guys announce their transfers. And we're talking like so many, like 3-time All-Americans are announcing their departure from programs. I am curious how these teams are going to navigate this. Because I'm pretty sure Penn State's well over 30 right now.
Yep. I think it's going to be one of those things where the RTCs take on some people who aren't on the official roster. So Dresser, we just said, loves his giant team so he can have a bunch of practice partners. I would not be surprised if the CRTC brought in some of those guys who could be practice partners but would probably never actually see the map. Give them a few $100 and say thanks, and then let them practice close to the same time that Iowa State practices.
Okay.
I could see that being an avenue that gets explored. Because Penn State right now for sure, they are well over the limit. So I don't know how these teams are going to navigate it, but I would imagine that it has something to do with the RTCs.
Yeah, I saw someone asking if programs would be able to call up someone from like the regional training centers. For anyone who doesn't know what CRTC stands for.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
It's Cyclone's Regional Training Center, but all programs really, well,
Pretty
I shouldn't
much
say all. Majority of them have
all
a
big
version.
programs.
Yeah, so like Iowa has the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, I think is what their CRTC.
Yep.
Sorry,
RTC.
their RTC is.
Yep.
And then Oklahoma State has one. Penn State has one.
Yep. Ohio State has one. Nebraska. Yeah, Nebraska definitely has one.
Someone had asked, like, well, can they call someone up from the RTC if someone gets hurt? Technically, if the rules stay as they are, no. They would not be allowed to just like call up someone from the RTC and be like, hey, Younger's hurt. We need you to step in. It would have to be someone in the official 30-person roster. So I think there's going to be a lot of questions the NCAA really needs to either reiterate or restructure to fit these things. I think there's still a lot in the air with how NIL will be handled at universities, especially at Iowa State, as you guys have probably all heard, with the new revenue sharing. It kind of changes up what like we will look like. Well, that also impacts wrestling. But I stand pretty firm that wrestling will most likely not be part of the revenue sharing and continue to do their NIL dealings through the Cardinal and Gold Collective and just keep to themselves, which I think is probably in their best interest.
That's how the wrestlers would make the most money.
That's a thing to also consider, but that's not something I think schools will really get into until this summer. Again, it's been a really crazy portal and you were gone for a week. So how did you feel like catching up on everything? Like, is it just shocking, especially because you've been around the sport longer than I have? You were a reporter for, I don't even know how long before I started.
2 years only.
That's still 2 years.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's changed so much. How did it feel like getting your phone back and catching up?
It was wild. I still don't feel caught up and I've been back for almost a week now. So like you've told me things before we recorded, I'm just like, that happened. It has without a doubt been the wildest transfer portal season that I have ever seen. And it seems like every big name is going to Iowa, Penn State, or Oklahoma State, which, like, I get it. Makes sense. But also really sucks.
Yeah.
Not because I'm an Iowa State fan and I root for Iowa State. That's part of it. But also because I like parity. Parity is fun. I think it's good for the sport. That said, I definitely appreciate Penn State's greatness. Like, what they're doing right now isn't unheard of because Dan Gable did it, but is just still so unbelievable to see. Like, how in this modern day can one coach be so much better than every other coach? Like, that part of it just makes no sense to me. And then you give him the dollars and the cents to be able to pay the guys, up front. And it's just like, yeah, they're going to keep doing it. And like, yeah, Iowa has a big time donor. If you follow Bo Bassett and his whole recruiting journey, yeah, he got paid millions of dollars. So like, Iowa has a bunch of money, but no offense to the Brands brothers, they can't compete with Kale.
No, they really can't. And I know Oklahoma State is trying.
They're trying to be Penn State 2.0. I saw that a bunch on Twitter.
They really are, right? And it's like, Taylor was just given the resources, given on a golden platter. And that's not like no hate to him. It's just kind of the matter of the fact. I've seen a lot of Oklahoma State fans very sensitive about this topic, about just like how the sport is viewing them. But like, it's a fact.
It's a fact, and it's a compliment. Having a bunch of money is not a bad thing. It's a really good thing. Like, and I think it comes from the way that we used to view college sports as like, oh, giving players money is bad. Don't do that. It's like, no, it's actually really good. So like, don't be ashamed of being able to give players or athletes a bunch of money. That's okay. Like, Casey Swiderski is going to make a bunch of money at Oklahoma State. Good for him.
Yeah. I do agree. And Dresser's hinted at this. Well, I shouldn't even say hint. He doesn't tend to hint. He, has said a lot like, hey, until the NCAA does something about this stuff, this is what it's going to be. Like, it's going to be the Wild West out here. Hundreds of thousands of dollars are being thrown at athletes. Wrestling is surprisingly to some not like exempt from that.
Nope.
Like, there are people getting $600,000. I don't even know what Bo Bassett officially got offered, but they said it was like over $1 million.
Yep.
So it's just kind of crazy. And I would like to see some regulation. I would like this to be honed in a little because, like you said, I want the parity. I hate that Nasir Bailey is leaving Little Rock, not because he's going to be a Hawkeye, but because I want Little Rock to continue to find these guys that really elevate their program.
That's a new program. Little Rock's a new program. Nasir Bailey is one of the original recruits, and he helped build up that program to the point where it's like, Little Rock's a fun program to follow.
Yeah.
And then now it's like, dang it, that sucks. And it's also what I appreciate so much about what Doug Schwab has done at UNI. For some reason, I've seen on Twitter that Iowa State fans don't like Doug Schwab, and that makes no sense to me whatsoever. Doug Schwab, for what he's doing at UNI, should be the most appreciated head coach. And I also saw that he won Big 12 Coach of the Year, and Oklahoma State fans were salty about that.
Yeah.
Get over yourselves. Doug Schwab absolutely deserves that award. Huge Doug Schwab fan.
Same.
And it's one of those things where it's like what he's doing at UNI with comparatively next to no resources. They don't have a wrestling room. They don't have a practice room right now. Not a permanent one, at least. Is it permanent now?
I guess I can't remember.
They had to tear down their practice facility.
If anyone knows, correct us.
So just what he's been able to do at UNI, I love to see that. And it does give me a little bit of hope that maybe someone every now and again can come up and sort of quote unquote surprise these big programs and still be relevant. But I mean, right now, we were talking about it before. You have very distinct tiers, which already existed, but are becoming more distinct, of Penn State, Iowa, Oklahoma State, top tier, Iowa State, Ohio State, Nebraska, second tier. And then you get like your Virginia Techs, Rutgers, North Carolina States that are like right there, right. You could argue they're second tier right with Iowa State. And after this last postseason, you could argue they're above Iowa State. But historically speaking, Iowa State's in that second tier. So,
yeah.
And it's just getting more and more obvious with this, which is fine. Again, I'm not opposed to athletes getting paid, but the NCAA needs to step in at least to some degree and give guidelines and rail guards to what is happening.
Yeah, just because It's just the Wild West. It's basically all of us just sitting, waiting to see what guys are going to which of the 3 schools. And the thing too with Penn State is it's really funny to me watching people get really upset at guys who are like committing to Penn State, because from my viewpoint, historically, what Penn State has done has always been, you know, the end all be all. Like that's where everyone dreams of being. So like, if someone got recruited enough that Cale brought them an offer, why would you ever say no? Anyone would say yes to Cale. I shouldn't say anyone. I'm sure there'd be some that would say no, but
if I was an elite wrestler, I'd go to Cale Sanderson.
Like why? People trying to say, oh, Cale has all this money. Cale would get them without money.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing here. So I think it's funny when people are really mad at Cale about this, because really I'm just looking at Oklahoma State and Iowa like, okay, which one of you has more money? Because that's what's happening. So I'm curious to see how a few guys who are still in the portal play out, just in terms of like, so where do you end up committing? And it's so obvious sometimes that money was truly this separator, right? Funny that you brought up UNI, because I don't know if you say, is it Hawkeasy, whatever that, do you know what I'm talking about? He's a burner, but people do know him. Someone was hating on Doug Schwab. I think I sent it to you and Aiden, and they tweeted, LMAO, dude got second in his conference and 8th at NCAAs. And this Hawkeye burner, who someone said they think he went to UNI, he responded, his budget is $9 and some Capri Sun pouches. Shut the F up. I died laughing. I sent that to Allison immediately.
That's incredible.
Because yes, what Doug Schwab built was truly and genuinely built just because he found guys who like believed in what they were selling. And unfortunately, money just is a problem, right?
Yep.
And it is very, definitely should be celebrated. I was very vocal about it. And I'm sure Iowa State fans will tell you they hate Doug Schwab because they won. You know, they hate to lose.
Which is fair. I get that from a fan's perspective, but like, you have to respect Doug Schwab.
There was a lot of hate for his antics.
Which is fair. He's a very animated guy.
Oh, he's nuts in the corner. I can hear him a mile away. Like sometimes if Iowa State wasn't wrestling during nationals, if I could find a purple singlet, I knew Doug was doing something crazy. So I have plenty of pictures from just watching him be a total psycho. But it's just funny because it's like, you guys weren't mad when Iowa State was winning. You were like, oh, Doug, we love that guy. So no, huge shout out to Doug Schwab. I'm really glad he won those recognitions. It was like NWC.
Yep, NWCA, National Wrestlers Coaches Association.
And then the Big 12 Coach of the Year, which he deserved.
Yep,
so
agreed.
people need to let that go.
Yep.
Other things around the sport, national duels.
Yep.
I'm really sad about that. Oklahoma State will be the host school for the National Duels Invitational. If you weren't aware of what that is, it's basically going to be this big duels tournament in Tulsa where the Big 12s are held. And it's a pretty huge deal because if you don't know the numbers, in the press release from the committee they've put together, they call it a groundbreaking $1 million collegiate wrestling event. Shout out to Paycom. That's the sponsor. And basically, it's a 16-team bracket, and it's supposed to bring in all the top programs across the country to wrestle, and the winnings are split up. So the top 8 teams will earn payouts. The winning squad walked away with $200,000. Imagine what $200,000 could do for Little Rock.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're winning it, but and then it said second and third place teams will earn 150, fourth place 75, 5th through 8 will get payouts that go 50,000, 40,000, 25,000, and 20,000. All participating teams will receive $20,000 for attending.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
That is.
And unfortunately for all of us, Iowa State did not make the cut. They decided that automatic entry goes to the top 12 teams, according to how teams finished at the national tournament. And then for the remaining 4 spots, it will go, should it say at random? Yep, filled through a random drawing between the schools that finished 13 through 24, I should say. So
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit. I have thoughts about how you determine the teams for it.
yeah.
To me, it makes no sense to use last year's results
Nope.
to determine something of that caliber and magnitude. Not just because Iowa State's not in it, but I mean, I think we could all look and agree that Iowa State's roster is a top roster for next year, assuming everyone's healthy, right? Big assumption. But it's just, if we're doing a tournament next year, why would you base it off of this year's results?
Right.
To me, that just makes no sense. And I get that they need to figure out a way to fill out the brackets before all the coaches get crazy with their scheduling. But I think there's got to be a better way to figure that out than to use last year's results. And like the top, whatever, 4 or 5, like we just got done talking about, sure, invite them because they're going to be good every year.
Yeah.
By and large, they just are because it's the same teams. But like Little Rock isn't going to be, and I don't know where Little Rock finished, so maybe that's a bad example, but there are going to be teams that finished in that top 12 who will not be anywhere close to a top 12 caliber team next year. So that interesting way to format it. We'll see how it works out for them. I mean, and maybe it's great for them because you're going to guarantee that Oklahoma State finishes right near the top because some of those teams that finished real high last year won't finish real high this next year, and they're going to be a number 10 seed or whatever. So I don't love the way it's formatted. I love that it's happening. Don't get me wrong. I think it's great for the sport that it's happening. I think there are some kinks to figure out in terms of how teams are selected.
We're singling out Little Rock, but they finished in 17th place.
Okay. So like they could get one of the random draws.
So they finished ahead of Arizona State and West Virginia.
Yeah.
Just for a little perspective there. Yeah. So yeah, I'm selfishly upset about it because I was going to make this happen. I didn't know how. I didn't know what I was going to say to Chris Williams, but I was going to come up with a reason why I needed to be there. But now I have no reason to be there unless someone who covers the entire sport wants to send me down there. But so selfishly, I'm upset, but it is what it is. It will still be a really fun event. And the teams have until, gosh, what is it? Like, April 15th. They have till April 15th to accept their invitation. And I'm pretty sure Penn State's not going to participate.
Yep.
Caleb made it seem pretty clear that they weren't. And I don't know. I could see Iowa being like, we're not going. But who knows? So I am curious to see what teams out of the top 12 opt out outside of Penn State. I don't really know how you don't participate in it if you're any other program.
Yeah,
but
you need the money.
Yeah. So you and I will be there, I think, right? They're not.
Yep.
I got that right. They're automatically invited.
I think so.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Panic there for a second. So yeah, that should still be fun. I will say Iowa State doing poorly obviously kind of sucks, but it gives an opportunity for at least someone like me to be able to watch other wrestling. So Friday night of the blood round, we finished interviewing Dresser, and we just kind of had the picture painted from there of like, all right, Jacob Frost is our guy. And I went up to Andy and we finished pretty early. And at the time, because the president was coming, Secret Service was coming in that night. So the goal from the NCAA was to kick everybody out by midnight. Hilarious. There's no way we were done by midnight. And so I was like, oh, I should just go back to the hotel and get to bed so that I can get actual sleep. And I was talking to Andy, and then I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to leave. Like, I think I'm done needing you. And he was like, what do you mean? He was like, Parker Kaisen's about to wrestle. So I was like, oh my God, you're so right. So I got to watch actual wrestling matches without having to like take photos or work or tweet or anything. I just got to literally sit and watch. So it was really fun watching the semifinals. Just because we don't get to just watch wrestling for fun very often. So I would love to know, what were some matches other than the obvious Gable Steveson, Wyatt Hendrickson match, but what were some matches that you really enjoyed, or any wrestlers that stood out?
Oh, what a good question. I I was really only able to watch Friday mornings matches. No, Thursday mornings. I watched Thursday mornings matches, and I think some of Friday morning matches. I'm trying to remember who stood out. So terrible person asked this question too, because I did not have that pulled up, but
should have prepared you.
Should have prepared. That's all right. Kai Kaisen's obviously always one that I love watching. There was one guy from one of the smaller, was Ryder having a really good tournament? Like, they had a bunch of guys that did really well. Or Bucknell, one of those two. I was like, oh, they're on one right now. And it was in the early rounds. I don't actually know how well they finished, but yeah. One of those two schools did some fun things in the early rounds of NCAAs.
I'm trying to remember because obviously Nebraska came out of left field for me personally.
Yeah, they sure did.
I was not expecting them to be so dominant. I thought it was really funny for anyone who wasn't watching every single second. They took the lead in the team race. And some people were making jokes on Twitter like, end it now. Since they were ahead, I think it was like 60. They were nearing 70 and Penn State was still a little closer to 60. So it was pretty funny. But unlike South Dakota State, I definitely underestimated their tournament just in March. It was really fun to watch them. I was very invested in Keegan O'Toole as always.
Yep.
I was so stressed because I think it was a quarterfinals match maybe. I don't even remember, but he was losing. He was down. And I was like in the back. I didn't have anything to do at the time. And I looked at they have TVs in the back that show you like the mat assignments and then shows you all of the mats. And I looked at the score and I was like, what do you mean he's down? So I just like sprinted out to the floor to watch him. So I was really excited to watch him just because he's graduating. It sucks. It was like he tore an ACL. That was a really big theme, was like finding out all these like top wrestlers had all these crazy injuries that nobody saw, like nobody knew about. Like Meyer Shapiro, is it Shapiro?
So
Shapiro?
People say it differently. Shane Sparks says Shapiro.
Okay.
So I don't know if he's right, but I've heard different people say it differently.
I feel like I trust Shane Sparks. He talked about being in like a coma. I'm pretty sure.
Who?
Meyer.
Oh, yeah, no, he did. I was actually listening to that one. Yeah, he said that. Meyer Shapiro was in a coma.
Yeah, he was in a coma 1 month prior to the national tournament, which is insanity. And there was one other guy, I can't remember who it was, who also had kind of a pretty big injury. And Keegan O'Toole had a pretty tough injury. So I think that was something that was talked a lot about when he did lose in the finals against Dean Hamidi. It was like he gave it all he could given the circumstances. And which also, circling back to Iowa State, I have never cried, but I cried with Evan Bachman. I can't explain it to you, Ben. I wish you could have been there to experience it, but it just so happens Evan Bachman gets to wrestle in the corner right where Iowa State's sitting. Iowa State had these two sections right by a tunnel. And so poor Stacey Frost, her sons are like wrestling on the opposite side. And it just so happens Evan Bachman gets this mat. So his match is right by the Iowa State fans. And it's his last match. And you just know it's going to be tough. And he was really hurt. And it was just, you could just like feel the air sucked out of that corner. It was just so hard to watch him because you knew he has like no MCL.
Yep.
He's out there wrestling with the hugest like sleeve you'll ever see on his leg. And it was just really hard just because I feel like everyone in that moment could try and think of just how much pain he was in. And it's always like a special type of emotions watching a guy who isn't like the David Carrs, the Keegan O'Tooles, the Wyatt Hendricksons of the world, but they just love it so much that they give it so much more.
Yep.
So that just made it just extra emotional, just knowing how much he loves the sport and to know this is how he's going to end. So I'm like sitting there trying not to cry, taking pictures. And then I'm like crying in the back because I'm like, this is so sad because he's done. Like, and he lost, but he still wrestled really hard. there were moments where I was like, oh, I think he could beat this kid. Like, he's kind of wrangling him around, but no, ultimately he lost. And it was really sad. So it's just sad how injured these guys are by the end of the season, man. I bet Iowa State's team feels great now, getting a little break.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, big day there in the finals. We can get to the end of our pod with the final match. Wyatt Hendrickson, Gable Steveson. What were your thoughts when ESPN decided to flip the order to start with Parker Ketkaizen and Carter Sirachi, flip back to 125 to end with heavyweight?
Yeah, I thought it was ridiculous. Going into it, it's like, how do you not end with Sirachi Ketkaizen? Like, and maybe Jackie and I are biased because we live in Iowa and we're big Parker Ketkaizen fans. But like also Carter Sirachi is going for a 5th national title, which has never been done. So I get Gable Steveson as an Olympic gold medalist. I get it. But people have won Olympic gold medals before and wrestled in NCAA championships. Kyle Snyder did it a couple of times. Other guys have done it. So it's just one of those things where, okay, we have a really, really good wrestler wrestling, or we have history. And ESPN decided to go against history. They got lucky. I will admit that they got lucky and it worked out for them. But to not end with Ketkaizen and Sirachi was a wild decision to me.
I obviously was very verbal about my distaste for the decision. And I think ESPN should thank the wrestling gods that that match went the way that it did, because if it hadn't, it would have been a really boring ending. And we would have all been like, look what you did. But they got
started
lucky.
with the best match, ended with what we all knew would happen. Now, again, luckily for them, Wyatt Hendrickson beat Gable Steveson, so they got really lucky. But I see people on Twitter, and like I think I agree with it. It's probably the second biggest wrestling upset of all time, behind Dan Gable and Larry Owings. So I get it; they got lucky, but man, it's still, you can't, if you're ESPN, you can't bank on that.
Well, and it's like the dramatics of Wyatt walking out with an American flag wrapped around him. And then I guess Gable like made a comment to him when he got on the stage. And I don't know what Gable said to him, and I can't remember, so I'm not going to misquote that. But I guess like Gable like was chirping at him. So then of course everybody loved that Wyatt won. But I mean, Gable's an entertainer. At the end of the day, as much shit as we give him about leaving and coming back, he did leave and he did go to the WWE and he did go experience a different environment. So he knows how to put on a show. He knows what he was doing when he called out Wyatt when he got to the stage. I will say, I forgot to bring this up. The NCAA puts on an official press conference at the start of the tournament. They pick 4 athletes, 4 coaches. Dresser was one of the coaches last year. And this year, for the 4 athletes, no surprise here, Gable Steveson, Carter Sirachi, Keegan O'Toole. And I don't remember who the 4th one was going to be, but it ended up being AJ Ferrari, which was a very interesting choice. But I felt like I was going crazy in there because no one was asking questions. And you can just tell how comfortable Gable is in that leadership position. You can just tell how, he's been around the block. So that was, my point is, being able to be in that interview room with Gable, it's just so crazy. He's a professional. He's a professional man. So I'm curious to see where his career goes now that he's over. But man, I was laying in bed watching that and I screamed at my TV. I won't lie. I really did, because I was like, what is happening? Especially when Gable kind of started, like, it looked like he was about to fall. I shouldn't say fall. He was about to get taken down. I was just like, oh my gosh, is this really about to happen? So absolutely crazy. Obviously, big moment. Wyatt Hendrickson won the Hodge Trophy. Congratulations to him. Sounds like he's going to be sticking around Oklahoma to train with their RTC. I'm curious how that works.
Me too. It's like at some point he has to join the Air Force.
He will. My good pal Seth, who is I'm pretty sure in the military, he had tweeted something like kind of explaining what Wyatt's future is going to look like. And it was something like he'll be able to train, but then will eventually like go in and be an officer.
Okay.
So I should have had that ready, assuming we would talk about that. But yeah, there's something. So shout out to Wyatt. Did really enjoy watching him wrestle, actually.
Yep.
I'll admit that. I was a big fan of Wyatt Hendrickson. Another heavyweight that I love that we should bring up is the trolling in wrestling has to be incredible in comparison to other sports. Like if you're not in like a die hard, like you live and breathe it, I can imagine watching Twitter from like an outside perspective. Just the way these teams have been calling each other out.
Mm-hmm.
Colton Schultz, big fan personally. I know Iowa State fans also don't really like him. I love Colton Schultz. I've loved watching him. He's going to go do great things, I'm sure. And is it Greco?
Yep, Greco-Roman.
I was going to say he's really good at Greco. He became All-American. What is he now? Five
I think 5-time All-American.
In Arizona State's Instagram, they put up a video of Colton Schultz winning his match, his third place match against Iowa's Ben Keeter. And they immediately used it as an opportunity to troll Iowa, which is so funny. Thank you, Aiden, for pulling it up. So Colton Schultz is smiling, hand raised, and Arizona State tags Iowa Hawkeye Wrestling and says, don't get any ideas. He's out of eligibility after this with a winky face. That is so funny.
I love that.
It
No
is-
other sport does that.
No.
Or even thinks about it. It doesn't cross their mind.
I know UCF, or Central Florida, as they love to be called, kind of trolls Iowa State a little bit, plays into the Cyclone Larry stuff. But like wrestling is so cutthroat because then you look at the transfer portal side of things. There was some rumblings that apparently Ty Waters was a hot commodity.
Yeah, West Virginia was hurt this year.
Yes. So, of course, in natural fashion in this climate, I guess Ty Waters' phone was ringing off the hook from other programs. And out of nowhere, West Virginia comes in real hot. The director of operations for West Virginia Wrestling quote tweets someone talking about if Ty Waters is going to transfer to Iowa. And the director of operations quote tweets it, whoever from Hawks Wrestling who keeps calling Ty's dad can stop wasting their time. He's not going anywhere. But we don't stop there.
Nope.
Good old head coach Tim Flynn
Yep.
tweets at Hawkeye Wrestling. Tell your people that our athletes don't want or need to know how, quote unquote, your NIL works. Kids at West Virginia don't need to know how Iowa kids are paid. LOL. And if you don't know what Tim Flynn looks like, look him up. He's a skinny, tall guy. I actually really like Tim Flynn.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy when there he is. Look at him, just a tall, skinny guy.
By wrestling standards.
Yes. He gets pretty animated in the corner. He gets pretty angry. So I do actually enjoy watching. I've enjoyed watching West Virginia get some of these like really solid guys.
Yep.
And so it's just so funny to me. Like imagine if Dresser did that.
Dresser doesn't use social media in that way. He uses press conferences in that way. Well, he'll just straight up tell you, this is what's happening and I don't like it. It's like, all right, Dresser, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I love it. I love wrestling coaches. I think Doug Schwab in a press conference, I think before nationals maybe, said something like, implied how they have big balls or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Can you imagine like, God, Matt Schultz or like
Ryan Workman.
Yeah, Ryan Workman did wrangle Dresser there for a little bit. But like imagine now today where things just feel so much more unhinged.
Yeah.
I love it. That's why I love the sport. It's definitely not boring. Eli, I'll give a quick shout out to Eli. Eli texted me Anthony's tweet, the one that we read earlier on the podcast, and I hadn't opened the text yet. Oh my gosh. I thought he was sending me like a transfer portal announcement. So all I saw was like the preview that said like at Anthony Etchemendia. And I was like, please God, no, I can't do that. So I'll tell you what, it's been entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, final thoughts, Ben.
Final thoughts. What a season. From start to beginning, I could not have predicted any of it, which is embarrassing because I tried to predict much of it.
That's true.
Looked like a fool many times this year, which is fine.
Not really.
I mean, a couple times. I mean, there were times where we talked about how excited we were to see a guy, and then he was not wrestling.
And then I was like,
weekend.
oh, he's actually like doesn't have an arm.
Yeah. So it is what it is. Last year, they made us look really smart the entire year when they finished fourth. David Carr did his thing. Younger Bastida was great. Well, except for the NCAAs, but he was hurt. So anyway, Anthony Etchemendia, like they made us look really smart last year. And then this year, a bunch of injuries and we look like fools sometimes. It's not their fault. It's our fault. We're the ones that put ourselves in front of a microphone. So
True.
no, it was an interesting year. I'm still very excited for the future of Iowa State wrestling. I think there's a very positive future. You get a guy like McCray Haggerty back now, not McCray Haggerty.
What?
Sawyer Bartelt. McCray Haggerty does wrestle for Iowa State, but Sawyer Bartelt, get him back in the lineup, see what he can do at 184. And you get Etchemendia back, Younger Bastida back, see what the Frost brothers do in their weight. But throw in Adrian Mazur, Christian Castillo, and I think you got a really good lineup. So again, maybe it competes for a team title. I doubt that, but you're for sure looking at a top 10 team if everyone stays healthy.
So fun fact, Christian Castillo was at Nationals.
Okay.
And I'm 99% sure that he somehow got a pass to be on the floor and he was like in my way. Like he was sitting in the like box they put all of us in.
Yep.
And I'm sorry to him, but he was literally in my way. So like at one point I literally had the camera like this close to his face because it was just like, I'm not going to throw you under the bus and go snitch on you, but like I need this space so I'm going to take it up. But I just remembered that as you said that. I feel like the biggest thing is that Iowa State fans need to know that one, this year does not define at all what's going to happen next year. And two, the lineup's going to look different.
Yep.
I don't have a firm idea of what that's going to look like yet. Ask me in May. Because I want to know who dressers get in that transfer portal. Because Iowa State might not have millions and millions of dollars like Penn State and Oklahoma State. But they've got money. They're going to make some noise, I'm sure. I'm curious to see who ultimately sticks. And it'll be a fun summer conversation. The one thing I do know is that I would like Jacob Frost in that lineup.
Me too.
I want him in there. I think
place.
like he proved himself.
All-American. You can't bench an All-American, can you?
How can you?
Yeah.
Without injury?
Yeah.
So, and I heard that Evan and Jacob gave a pretty great speech at the social.
Okay.
Yeah. Everybody was speaking very highly of
Nice.
like the way they spoke. They said they sounded like leaders. And we didn't even talk about Evan and Jacob, just as brothers, experiencing that. And I think that weekend kind of set them apart from being two quiet guys to, I just feel like Jacob kind of stepping up really cements.
Yep.
their
Future
impact.
leaders of the
Yeah.
program. Yep.
Now that we've lost some. So we'll definitely talk about future lineups. So like I said, get to May, get through this first little swing of things here, and then we can start figuring it out. But I think there's going to be some new faces on the team.
Yep.
So something to prepare for. It'll be fun. I'm excited. I'm already counting down the days. So, but anyways, Ben, as always, thank you for another
Absolutely.
great season.
Another great season.
Shout
for
out to
sure.
Fareway, who once again supports the pod, supports the work we do. Go support them. Go buy your groceries. It's going to start getting warm here soon. Fingers crossed. It's been a fun, regardless of the result, it's still been a fun season. So
Things always happen. So
yeah, I'm excited. We'll keep doing this. I'll keep you all informed as much as I can as I learn things throughout the summer. But like I said, May 2nd is the key number, or a key date, I should say, for future things going on with Iowa State. But we'll let you guys know if we decide to come back and do some random summer episodes. But things are going to heat up here. So
yep.
as always, thank you so much for listening, guys. Thank you for listening this season. Ben and I aren't going to go anywhere, as far as I know.
As far as I know, yeah.
So yeah, we're not hitting the transfer portal. So as always, thanks, guys. Thanks to Aiden.
Yeah, shout out to Aiden.
Huge fan. Best producer ever.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we'll be back. We'll let you know when we're back. Thanks, guys.